I invite you to take your Bibles, please, and turn to Acts, the 19th chapter. Acts 19. We're about ready to deal with the crowd that gathered at the theater in Ephesus, and it was quite a gathering, and we shall look at how Paul and his companions deal with that event as well. We established in our class last week that the magical arts that people had to kind of sleight of hand, and they were received. People fell for those things. We found these exorcists, Jewish exorcists that are wandering about like itinerant preachers going about in the area, and they had success. But when they met up with the true miracles of God, as we see in the New Testament, we see there's indeed a difference and an understanding. This is distinct. I think God's fingerprint is there for a purpose. I think you and I, if we saw miracles of the Bible today, could tell a difference of what they've done. I've been in meetings with denominational faith healers and seen how they work on an audience, and all the people say, I think you've got a pain in your neck, and we kind of start feeling the pain in our neck. And then he's going to cure it. It never was there in the first place. But they work on a power of suggestion, feelings of people, but if someone raised someone from the dead, we had their funeral 3 days ago or 4 days ago, and they raised them from the dead, that would be something that gets your attention. And those type of miracles happen. God allowed possession of demons in people's bodies in this time for a purpose. I don't think we have that today, because the confirmation of who God is has been established. But during those days, there would be people that take over the bodies, and they would speak things, and they were very difficult to deal with. Prayer, fasting is the only way they're going to be taken out sometime by God told his apostles. But God never allowed demon possession to kill a person. I'll say that again. He never allowed demon possession to kill a person. He killed some pigs one time. They drowned themselves. But not people. But they were there to cause them great harm. And God's power here, I know Paul, the demon said. I know Jesus. I know Paul, but I don't know you. These two sons of Sceva. There were 7 of them doing their work. And what happened then? The man, empowered by the demon, beat up 2 of them. They ran out of the house naked and bruised. That's an impression to realize even the demons know God and his authoritative spokesman. We don't know you charlatan. And it's kind of laughable. You feel sorry for the people. But you see that distinction. They start burning their books, worth maybe about $8,000 when it's all said and done, and realize that's not the way we go. So what do we see in verse 20? So mightily, Acts 19, verse 20, so mightily grew the word of the Lord, and what did it do? It prevailed. It prevailed over magical arts, people thinking they're somebody, and realizing that here is the confirmation from God. What's it all about? We want to have a circus. We want to have an exciting happening. We're going to have a healing service today. Come on out. It wasn't there for entertainment. It wasn't there. It caused wonderment, but it was there to confirm what? The word. And the word prevailed. It realized this is from God, and we will go that route as far as God is concerned. And it grew mightily, it's strongly. And I think those words are there in the context of this demon possession that took place. So we come now to verse 21, and this is our study for today. We're in our lesson number 16. You can follow along with us there, and just lesson 17 and 18 are there for you to pick up. And if you picked up on 18 earlier, you need to trash that and get this one. This is updated. And I think we have it updated on our website as well as the way it ought to be. So the corrected copies are there. But lessons 17 and 18 there. We'll probably get into 17 today. We'll see. But what's his plan? What's his plan as he now is going to be dealing with these people in Ephesus, and he stays there for a while, sends his other men away. We talked about that. So in verse 21, now after these things were ended, Paul did something. He purposed in connection with what? Your spirit. Remember, if the Lord wills, I'll be here and do that. He just not purposing, so this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. It's his plans. But it's in connection with the Spirit. Remember the Macedonian call back here in Acts 16? That indeed they couldn't go north into Bithynia. They couldn't go south into Asia Minor. They had to keep going toward the coast and toward Troas. And that's where the Macedonian call comes. God was leading them. The Spirit of Christ would not allow them to go north, south, head west. And that's when they went over to Macedonia and began to preach there. That was God's will. And so what he's doing, I'm purposing in connection with the Spirit. And what is he purposing? What are his plans? Well, I can not make plans. What are they?
He wants to go across the Aegean and hit Macedonia and Greece and then return.
Okay, that's right. He's going to go to Jerusalem, and then he wants to go see Rome, doesn't he? He'll see Rome, not the way maybe he purposed, but that's exactly what. When I pass through Macedonia, so as Joel says, you're going to leave Ephesus, go over there, and then I will then go to Achaia. I go south in the area of where Corinth is, and then I go to Jerusalem, and after I've been there, I must also see Rome. So he sent the two into Macedonia, Timothy and Erastus, and himself stayed in Asia for a while. So this becomes important because in our next lesson, as we get into chapter 20, he changes his plans. And what do the Corinthians do who are his enemies in Corinth? They say he's fickle. Therefore you can't trust his gospel. And Paul fights that, and we'll see when we get there, we'll deal with that. But he refutes that. In Christ it's yea. It's not yea and nay. But that doesn't mean that he's going to stop purposing and giving God a bad thought because he changed his plans. It's that the fact I'm going to be working in connection with how the Spirit directs him. But those were his plans, and we realize it's going to change. So now he's in Ephesus for a while. And we pick up with some events that take place on this occasion. Number 14. Question number 14. We find a man by the name of Demetrius. And what did he fear? Which is going to lead to this riot. When you sum up what he feared, what did he fear? David?
He was afraid that his craft of making silver shrines to Artemis would be in danger of being destroyed.
That's right.
Everybody accepted what Paul was preaching. And so that's why he organized that, I guess, kind of the first Union strike perhaps in recorded history.
Yeah.
That these people just banded together and thought, well, we got to protect our job because if this stuff goes out, people accept it in wide numbers, we could be out of trouble.
Yeah. Is that so far-fetched in 2024 that would happen? Man's nature hasn't changed.
Last year, the big olive workers got hit with strikes that were very critical and cost them huge amounts of money.
Yeah. And it hurts. And this is how he's making a living. I understand that. And I'm saying human nature doesn't change. I mean, it's just, that's how you hit where this is going to rob us of our livelihood. It'll be destroyed. And by the way, he has another reason why he fears it. What's the other reason? It wasn't the first reason. It's another reason. The great Diana is going to be in disrepute. We are the temple. We have her temple here. And that's, she's going to kind of be less than if we follow Paul's teaching. And what was Paul teaching? He was teaching there are no gods that are made with hands. That's what he did in Athens. That's what he's been preaching. I want to make that point because they're going to say, he didn't blaspheme the Diana goddess. That's when he goes to court. And he said, well, he said, they're not gods that are made with hands. That's going to include Diana, but he didn't blaspheme her. He dealt with the root. And there may be a lot of gods there, but even those who are going to stand up and say, why are you having this uproar? They're going to establish the thought that he didn't rob temples and he did not blaspheme Diana. I said, whoa, that's why they're having this riot. He just preached that there's no gods that are made with hands, and he gave look at yourself. One point of yours says that we're the offspring of God. If we're the offspring of God, it ain't gold, silver that you're making. Powerful argument. Well, look at me. We're creating the image of God. It must not be gold and silver, and that's who represents our God. Diana, as grotesque as that image was, and it changed over the years. It was made of silver, and these men made their living doing that, and I can understand that, but those were the two reasons. He said in verse 24, no little, American Standard said, no little business under the craftsman. That's what Diana and making the shrines have done for us. Whom he gathered with the workmen, there's your unit work, David says, of like occupation, and says, sirs, you know that by this business, or this work that we do, we have our wealth, or we have our prosperity. And you see in here that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul persuaded and turned much people away, saying that there are no gods that are made with hands. So then not only is there to endanger this, our trade, it'll come into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana be made of no account, and that she should be disposed from her magnificence from all Asia, and the world worshipeth. And the world worshipeth. So that's the area of thought. My money, and we've got one of the seven wonders of the world at that time, our temple. And when you see Timothy and you see the church is the foundation, it's the pillar and the ground, and those pillars, there were a bunch of pillars in the great temple of Diana. It was a wonder. And they were the temple keepers. People wanted to keep their money safe. They wouldn't go to a bank, they'd go to the temple. And here was the goddess of love and reproduction and all those things that we have there. Artemis in the Greek is her, but Diana, as we see here among the Roman people. And so that's just a part of what he's speaking about here that we can understand. And so he raises this problem. And now it's voiced and it's understood, it spreads. We have a crowd, don't we? We have a riot that is taking place. And so now we're going to see what happens. We're going to just follow the outline on the questions. Name the companions of Paul who were seized by the mob and brought to the theater in Ephesus. And we'll get to the crowd in a moment. What are their names? There's Gaius, Aristarchus. These are men that were traveling companions of Paul, and they were the ones that were indeed brought to the theater, and so they captured them. Verse 29, the city was filled with confusion, and so they having seized Gaius and Aristarchus, men of what area? Macedonia. So there's the Macedonian connection. Well, there's a lot of Gaiuses in the New Testament. There's a few of them. We have a Gaius of Corinth, who was baptized by Paul. We have a Gaius of Derbe that in Acts 20, just a chapter over in verse 4, is part of Paul's companions. But he was of Derbe, not Macedonia. And so this is probably a distinct Gaius from what automatically comes to your mind. First Gaius, Corinth. Well, he's Corinth. Derbe, that's Asia Minor. Macedonia is across the sea. And so I'm assuming that he was a different one. And Aristarchus is going to be in this group that's traveling with him as well. as we see in Acts 20. But there indeed was, maybe that's where he was residing at that time. It was maybe a Gaius of Derbe, but he was residing there of Macedonia. That could be. But just realize there's some distinctiveness made of these Gaiuses, and we can't nail down, is he the one in Corinth, or is he the one here that was in Acts 20? That was going to be in Acts 20? You have to make up your own mind about that. But they had names. They're real people. And indeed, he brought them to the theater. And here is the mob that is being gathered. And so we asked the question, just how confused was this crowd in the theater? They're there, and that theater's still there. Marble seats, if you want to go rent one or buy one, or buy a seat. It's the ruins, but indeed we realize that happened. That could have happened there. It could hold over more than 1,000 people at that time. And they grew a crowd. And I just want to see the nature. Were they confused about what's happening? How confused were they? They did not know what was going on. And why are we here? I just always think about that. Hey, what's all the commotion here? Why are we here? And they didn't know. They didn't know. But they were there. And when it realized that here the disrepute of Diana, that's what's going to be setting forth in their minds. And verse 32, some therefore cried one thing and some another. The assembly was in confusion. The more part knew not, more of them knew not, whereof they were come together. I guess the craftsmen, silver craftsmen, they had their reason there, and this may be their reason there. Plus also Diana is on the line here. And they brought Alexander out of the multitude, the Jews putting him forward. That didn't work too well. The town clerk is going to be dealing with this. But notice in verse 34, when they perceived that Alexander was a Jew, we don't listen to him. All with one voice. Some didn't know why they're there, but you get a stadium of people, and yeah, we got our team on the line. We're focused now on that. So what do they say? Great is Diana of the Ephesians. How long did they shout that? 2 minutes? 2 hours. Could you do that for 2 hours? I don't know of any chant that I could do that for 2 hours. Maybe I don't care enough. I don't know. But I guess what else do we have to do? We're here, and now we know. And that temple is important. Diana is important. And they shouted. So if you can shout for 2 hours, you just make the God real. You change reality. It's just like, that's what I got. And therefore, I'm going to just shout. And and we do it constantly. That doesn't mean some took over and some was quiet and they take their breath and others do it. But for 2 solid hours, you're hearing, great is Diana of the Ephesians. So here's the goddess Diana. And here, the Ephesus, that's how we're known. And here's our community. And therefore, they cause the confusion is there. That's a riot has taken place. They've got 2 of the messengers. And when Paul wanted to go in, his companion said, no, you're not. And so they saved him from that. Because what happens in a riot, anything can happen. It's out of control. But now they were united over that. So great is Diana. And if you just care enough and are passionate enough, and you went 2 hours shouting that, then you must have the truth. What Elijah and prophets of Baal, they realized they just cut themselves. They just went around trying to get God, making sure God's listening to them. You can do all that. That doesn't change the fact that there are no gods that are made with hands. There's one true God. And he's watching this. He's overseeing all this. But we see that here are the people, and here's the confusion. And so we've already said that Alexander, they brought him out, and that didn't work because he's not in their language that they care about. So the town clerk is brought on the scene, and he handles it pretty well. He quiets them. He reasons with them. And for long, the thing's dismissed. Who was the town clerk in biblical days? You know? Just kind of, why would they be the official one to listen to? Because he quieted them. First of all, he's probably not a Jew. He's among them. But he was a scribe in a sense. He was a record keeper, like a secretary treasurer, or one that does the secretarial work of counting out, writing out the minutes of the last meeting. The town clerk kept a written record of what's taking place. So this person had some authority and prestige among the people where they would at least listen to him. And so he had that type of thing going for him that apparently Alexander didn't have, because they say, well, he's a Jew, we're not going to listen to him about this. Here's one of their own that had this honorable position where he was a writer. He write the history and write the notes that are taking place, and he would be transcribing what events happened here. And they needed to be very careful about what they were about to do and causing harm to the companions of Paul and the things of that sort. So we began to realize what he is does. So I ask you, as you read and digest this section, give me some bullet points. How did he quiet the mob? How does he do that? And I want to go in order, please. And if you don't want to go, it's fine. David, just say what you're going to say.
The first thing he said was, since they were chanting that thing, great is Goddess Diana, or Artemis, whichever language you prefer, for 2 hours, he said, first of all, who doesn't know the city of Ephesus is guarding the temple of great Artemis Diana?
Yeah.
It felt like you're chanting this, and everybody knows who that is, so why are you chanting?
I think that's a good point. Everybody accepts that as true. And again, when you're shouting it, doesn't make it more true. And I think that was probably a way to quiet him. And so we're the temple keeper of the great Diana. The worship place where the presence of Diana is, and we got these silver shrines to say she's here, is the fact that we're in charge of protecting that. And everybody knows that is great. And what does he add to that in verse 35? And of the image, that's inserted, but I think it's there, the image, it's the thoughts there, which fell down from, what does your Bible say? I hear Jupiter, I hear Zeus. Which is it? Huh? I like that one. Zeus and Jupiter were the gods of the sky. And Zeus was Greek and Jupiter was Roman. It fell from the sky. This image fell from the sky, fell from Jupiter, Zeus. Each of the cultures are going to blend together in the Grecian culture. And while Rome had its universal power, widespread power, that Greek culture will take over. And we see it doing it right here. It's part of it. And I think the idea from heaven, because they were the god of the sky, that indeed it fell from heaven. And some translations have it, but the Greek translation there, it denotes the idea of sky, heaven. But here's your particular God that rules the heavens, and so it came from them. And you Greeks know it one way, and Romans know it another way. And that takes care of all the translations. They're all accurate. They're all good. But the idea of image, it didn't come from over there in Corinth. It didn't come from any place on earth. It came from heaven. And we're the keepers of that. And here's the image that represents that. So, town clerk, sure not upsetting Demetrius and his bunch, and that union. Understanding that you don't have to yell us. We know this is what happened. Well, did it really fall from heaven? Or this image we have, did Demetrius make it yesterday? That represents what fell from heaven. So that indeed is the first point. Verse 37, for he had brought hither these men who are neither robbers of the temples. Did they come in there and try to rob? No, they didn't. Nor blasphemers of our goddess. Is he talking about Aristarchus and Gaius? They didn't really do it, but Paul did. All Paul said, they're not gods. And if you want to, but if they're wanting to get Paul and they didn't get him, he's making a statement they didn't blaspheme our goddess. He wasn't particular going after our goddess. He just said all gods. And we know this God true. So they hadn't robbed the temple. So why we have this problem? If therefore Demetrius and the craftsmen are with him, have a matter against any man, what's open to them? The courts are open, and here are proconsuls ready to hear. Let them accuse one another. But we don't need to have it in this theater where it's just a bunch of riotous people, and more of them don't know why they're here. But he's bringing it to a point where he said, we have a place to do that orderly. And they do. If they've done something liable of punishment, let us know. But they didn't rob your temple and they didn't blaspheme goddess, Diana. And they're open. But if you seek anything about other matters, it shall be settled where? It'll be settled in a regular assembly, not this one. A regular assembly. For indeed we are in danger to be accused concerning this city's riot. There being no cause for it. As touching it, we shall not be able to give account of the concourse or the uproar, the confusion that's taking place. So he brings them back to honor our justice system, honor our courts. That's where we can handle this. It's not going to be handled today in this because we're going to be liable of doing something that is not honorable. And I'm impressed with that. The fact is we're not doing something to our agenda and that we're doing that which is honorable by our laws that we live by and honor that. And we want to be an honorable Ephesus. We want to be an honorable people by the law. And we've got infrastructure here in our system that we can take care of this problem. You got a problem with this, guys? Take it to the court. Do it in a regular assembly, not here. And what happened? When he had thus spoken, what did he do? He dismissed the assembly. He had that kind of authoritative power, maybe because not only his position, but he taught some sense to a crowd to help them get a hold of themselves. And when that happened, Paul, having sent for his disciples, exhorted them, and he left them and departed to go into Macedonia. He's going to go across the sea now into Macedonia. Any comments on just the orderly fashion of bringing them back to order? Appeals to we know our God, and nobody's going to do that. They haven't robbed your temple. You're still a good keeper of the temple. And we've got laws set, and you're violating those things. And we've got a way of dealing with, you got a problem. Demetrius, you got a problem? Take it to the courts. Do it in a regular assembly. But here's what, do good things happen now on riots? When people are all charged up, and people going down the streets, and someone don't know, but I'm going to get in with it, that sort of thing. That happens today. That happens any time. And here's just, how do you solve that? Well, if people don't care about the courts, people don't care about the sanctity of life, if people want to have their own agenda, we're going to force our way upon people, then I don't know if this assembly would be dismissed. On this occasion it was. David?
This is a good example of going back to the Old Testament. Exodus 23, verse 2, the
That's right. Except cats, you can't herd them. They do their own thing. That's exactly right, and that's human nature. So it's interesting, the Bible, it just kind of gets real all the time. That's what we are. Now, wait, going into any other questions on Acts 6, on lesson 16? All right. Starting chapter 20 and verse 1, we're going to identify some people. And so who is Eutychus in this chapter?
The young man that fell out the first story window and Paul's
All right. So in this section here, we'll be looking at him. And it was at nighttime because the lights were in the house. And you said a third story. Does the Bible say third story? My Bible does. Third story is pretty high, isn't it? I don't care hang on, what are your stories there, but can you die from 3 stories up? He died. He died. And the events that take place on that is pretty interesting of seeing what happens here. But they, in chapter 20, they've gathered at Troas, and we'll talk in details about that. And he stays a whole week so he could take the Lord's Supper with them on the first day of the week. And he's preaching until midnight. I think that started in the evening time. And he did preach till midnight. And here's Eutychus sitting at probably an open window. And he just falls out. And events take place. Yes, sir.
A couple of the things I picked up was, because he was in the third window, there was a lot of people there to hear Paul, and he was also interested in hearing Paul, and he was willing to sit up there
Yeah.
and do that.
I don't know if he was a slave or not. A lot of times the evening gatherings of the Christians on the first day of the week were at nighttime so the slaves could come a lot of times. And that could be a possibility. If he had worked all day, he could get tired. Now, is Paul the only one that people go to sleep on when they preach? Oh, they would never go to sleep. I'm preaching. Yeah, they do. And they blame it on medicine. I don't know. A lot of times that's true. But if you're working all day and you're sitting still, and it's easy to go to sleep, you don't want to go to sleep. But he did that, and so he falls out of that window, and he's dead. Verse 8 says, there were many lights in the upper chamber where we were gathered together. And there he sat in the window, a certain young man named Eutychus, borne down with deep sleep. I mean, he's out. And therefore, he's not able to hold himself up and that sort of thing. As Paul discoursed yet longer, being borne down with sleep, he fell down from the third story and was taken up, unconscious. We're going to do CPR and get him going again. He took him up what? Dead. I'm going to assume he was. And Paul went down and fell on him, and embracing him, said, make ye no ado, for his life is in him. Maybe he wasn't dead. I think he was. And with laying on him, there's this idea brought him back to life. Paul could do miracles that we talked about earlier. And thank you. And when he was gone up and had broken the bread and eaten and had talked to them a long while till the break of day, a long time between midnight, say 6 a.m. the break of day, but that's how long he was there. And they brought the lad alive and were not a little comforted. So they brought him back up there to them, and he was now alive, and they were happy. And they stayed till morning break. But Eutychus is an example that we follow. Now, here's an example. Should we apply that in our dismissal prayers? That somebody fall out of the window and dismiss the assembly? It sure is an example of one. They had to gather back again. And said, well, we're going to follow examples of theirs. Well, that might not be the one. Who's going to be put on that duty list? Well, I don't mind falling asleep on the preacher, but I don't want to fall off the top of this roof. So I think you might need to get somebody else. It's just those events that happen. Here's a gathering, and yet God uses that in order to establish Paul's authority again among these people. But these were disciples of Christ, but it just confirmed it. It added to their faith. And they were so happy that Eutychus is alive, and we would be too. They came to church. They came to the assembly on the first day of the week, and they died. And they listened to the preaching of Paul. Wish we could hear the preaching of Paul. And we probably wouldn't go to sleep. But he was borne down. He was tired. And it was a time of day in which you would be going to sleep. That's who he is. Our time is short. Who is Agabus? He's a prophet. And what does he warn Paul about? That they're going to bind him when he goes to Jerusalem. And that's true. Philip's daughters. Philip sounds like he's Philip the evangelist. He is. And where are they located? They're located in Caesarea. That's where Philip, the chariot and all that stuff. Where did he go? Well, he's over Caesarea. And he's an evangelist still. But he has some daughters, and they're virgins. And what do? Ooh, prophesy. Women prophesying. It doesn't say the context in which they do. It says they do it. Remember, Paul speaks to the people in Corinth that women, as they are involved in prophesying, they were to wear the head covering on them, because it showed in their culture, it showed the idea that they're submissive to men. And there were women in Corinth jerking it off and prophesying. They had the gifts to prophesy. But in Corinthians, they were to have that already arrangement. Apparently, some of them weren't. And he equates it. It's like a woman being shaven. She wouldn't want to go out in public like that. That's a shame. It's a shame then to not wear the covering. It was mandatory upon the people exercising their miraculous spiritual gifts while the word is being confirmed, and now we have it in place. It was something that was already recognized in their culture. You're coming to where in the streets, and you have a woman, she's not wearing the veil. That's so she's not submissive. She's not submissive to her husband. That's bad. And that is a principle of God. That's why he made it mandatory. Not to make it something we all have to do in all of our cultures. It never has been a sign of submission, and we don't have miraculous spiritual gifts to do it today. But people still wear that. That's fine. People of their own conscience would do it. But it's not a Romans 14 thing. Paul is making it firm. This is wrong. You've got to wear that. Those who are praying and prophesying. Praying sometimes were miraculous prayers. People need to learn how to pray. But here we see these daughters had that ability, and the Holy Spirit in Acts 2 would come upon men and women. Well, we're not going to get on the women. They're there. And they're prophesying. Maybe people would go to them. And where they're still being humble, but they don't have a husband. But showing the humility and whatever it would to show that they're not overriding the place of men, they would bring teaching in certain situations. Maybe private there, but not teaching over a man. We said that wasn't going to happen either. But it's just the fact that it helps me in 1 Corinthians to know, because people say, well, that's just a custom. We don't have such a custom there. They had a custom in place with their culture, and God never brings forth new dress styles. He doesn't inject that. But he will honor those that are bringing a principle in that culture, not to violate that. And that's what I think is happening in Corinth. Of course, that's where he's talking about these daughters. These daughters prophesied. And Nason, Nason, while in Jerusalem, that's where he's going to lodge. He had to lodge there. Well, it's kind of with purpose. Maybe that was the plan that was there. And we'll have to stop there. And Lord willing, next time we'll get on question number 1. So we've looked at Eutychus and Agabus and the Philip's daughters and Nason. And now, what all did Paul do while in Macedonia and Greece? We'll talk about that, Lord willing, next time. Thank you.